Hi, today we are going to talk about how to help someone who is grieving. Now, I'm going to talk about this specifically with regards to my son's death and also to my father's death, but you can just assume that grief takes many forms, as well as grief can happen over things that aren't necessarily for a death. So apply these accordingly. When someone dies or we're going through grief, oftentimes we might want to comfort our friend, our loved one who's going through this grief. But like me, maybe you feel intimidated, you're not quite sure how to do it, you don't want to create awkward moments, and it can be difficult. So, what do? We end up doing nothing, which actually creates some isolation for the person who's going through this grief. Now, everybody is different in their grief. When my son died, my family pretty much cocooned for a few days. We didn't want a lot of interaction with the outside world. It's what we needed to do our initial healing. But then after about a week, we were able to get together with a few close friends and just visit briefly. And we enjoyed very much talking about our son. That was important to us. Memories, talking to people who knew him and would share with us pictures or memories. That was great. Now, that was our story, but I also know several people who lost a loved one and they had an open house that very day so that people could come over and console them and be with them. You just need to take your cues from the person who is grieving and allow them to initiate how much contact they would like to have. You know, it just was too much for us in the beginning to continually go over the story, what happened, to rehash everything. It was just all of this emotion that was going on, and it was exhausting. Quite frankly, it was emotionally exhausting. Now, when you're reaching out to other people, know that they get this onslaught of support within the first couple days, the first couple weeks, but after a couple months, then it's kind of like things go back to normal for everybody else, but not for the one who's grieving. And just continue to show your support, show your love, but once again, be very cognizant of how these people respond. We had a very good friend who, it was about 9 months after our son died, he wanted us to come out. He's a very fun loving guy. He wanted us to come out to this theater and to do these things with him and his wife and have a lot of fun. And after several very forceful invitations, I finally had to tell him, that's not where my husband and I are. We are not at a place where anything is funny. It's just, we're not at that place where we can go out. You know, you can invite people, but just be cognizant of how they respond, because sometimes it can just be too much and people are just trying to cope day to day, and anything that's beyond that is just too heavy for them to deal with at times. But once again, this is an individual thing. Now, soon after my son died, and I might be out in public in the store or something, and I'd see a friend or a neighbor or somebody who lived in the neighborhood, somebody that knew my son, I would bring it up. I would say something like, I imagine you've heard that Christian died. And I would start talking about it. And my husband's like, why are you talking about it to people? Why do you bring it up? And I would bring it up because it's the elephant in the room. I wanted them to know that I could talk about it and that it would be okay for them to talk about it too. But once again, just be very cognizant and be there. You don't have to fix anything. You can't fix anything. And if you're just there and show up in a way that shows that you're caring and that you want to just be there without having to say anything, that's probably one of the most touching things you can do. So hopefully this has helped you as you go about your day and your life and come across people who are grieving and who might need your support.